December 2025 with an invitation to a group of Malaysian contemporary artists, some who already work with textiles as a medium and others not at all. And we asked them, would you want to learn tekat, the traditional art of gold thread embroidery, and explore how it might be reimagined to your own art practice? And the response was an enthusiastic yes from all our artists. 9 artists, together with 9 students from the Malaysian Institute of Art, embarked on this journey, approximately 4 months of learning from the Tekat artisans, experimenting with unfamiliar Tekat techniques, developing ideas, and discovering ways to integrate this heritage craft into their own creative languages. Today, a selection of the artists will share their reflections on learning, making, and possibly continuing Tekat. Through their experiences, we hope to offer insight onto how traditional crafts can remain relevant, not only through preservation, but through experimentation, interpretation, and contemporary practice. Briefly on today's format, I will be inviting artists to present in 2 groups of 5. So as you can see, our first group is already in the chat, and we'll have another group of 5 artists. And we want to keep this session informal and conversational, as it is an opportunity for us to learn from the artists as well as each other. Please feel free to ask any questions at any time, any point in time during the presentation by just waving your hand, and we can take one or two, or we can take one or two questions at the end of each artist's sharing. And artists are also invited to ask each other burning questions. Yeah? Okay. So to begin, we've got our first group of artists here, and I will invite them and I will introduce them before they each speak, so I won't go through the whole panel. And I'd like to begin with Yan, who is at my far right, who's a textile artist who works with natural indigo dyeing and shibori techniques. While her practice centers on color, dye, and surface transformation, she introduces the precision and structure of the cut in blessing as part of her sun shower series, and this is her work over here, right? And I will hand the mic over to her as she takes us through her process of making.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for your presence today. This sunflower series, I already working on my wearable arts, and that is when Shamin saw my series and thought this is a great idea to do my Tekat project. So I'm going to show you a little bit the plan is to have a easy 2026 because I have a very hectic 2025. I thought of doing something different. So when Shamin approached me in December last year, so I thought it was a good idea to try different things, but it turned out that different things is actually occupy a lot of my time. My easy year plan had to be changed. So in the process, we learn how to build our pemidang. We call it pemidang. When we came for the 2 days learning, the moment we start learning it, it's not only it is slow for beginner and it's hard to do a good embroidery. It's not something that you do it slow, you will achieve good result. So I did a practice piece, and it's like the moment you learn how to cook, you need to prepare a feast for a group of people. That kind of feeling, like going into creating an art piece. So the process took me about 2.5 months from conceptualize to finish work, in total of 150 hours. And I worked through late nights, and my cat, which I named her Indy, she's my best companion. Yeah. She's
Very
good.
confident.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, would I continue? Yes, I would, but maybe in a more no deadline kind of time.
Yes.
You know, because it's such a waste not to proceed with the ideas, and I do hope there are more breakthroughs in my future artworks with the cat. Thank you.
Sorry, I'd just like to go back 2 slides because I think we had a conversation on. Yes, this slide. Because I asked Yan what was one of the hardest parts of the cut. And I think we spoke about how when you do the cut, you can't actually see, like you can see the needle going down, then underneath, from underneath, you got this, the other hand has to see the needle coming up. And I think that was one of the hardest parts for you.
That is a specific angle and specific spots, you know, like maybe in the ratio of 5 mm different, but you need to come out and like when we start to get one point, it take me 5 to 6 attempts.
Yes.
You know, just remember just one track.
Yeah. Yes.
And then in the process, pricking your fingers is a norm.
Yes.
So like this pattern that we see here, how long will it take?
Like this, more than a day, because in the beginning I was really slow, definitely more than 8 hours.
So it's like the same action.
Yes, even towards the later, where the accuracy of, you know, like maybe I'll use once or twice I get to the right point, that will still take a day.
Not
It
a
also
day for me. That's
depends
1
like
week.
how small is the pattern. Like for
One
instance,
cloud
my
is 1 week
cloud
for me.
is rather small that I can only use
I
4
won't.
strands
I
of
can't.
gold.
I can. I think one day I'll do like that.
So, you know, 2 and 4, and sometimes you pull too hard
I was.
with the couching, you broke the thread, and then you have to redo on that part.
When we first started this project, I think, and I'll share, all the artists, when they first proposed their works, there were a lot more tekat on it. Right? There's a lot more tekat on it, and then like, I always like to reference Yan.
Yes.
Yan's child started to float away. Yeah, because I think when they actually started the process of, and then you realize how much, how meticulous it was, and you needed time to be able to I would say master it. Yeah. So the initial proposals had a lot more tekat, but I think that they
Yeah,
managed
I
to find
wanted
a
to
good balance.
embroidery my whole flower.
Can
Maybe
I
should that.
just add, you said like you need 5 to 6 times attempts, right? Mazam, the ID guru who has done it for 40 plus years, also needed a few times attempts. So, yeah.
So I think those who were able to join us last week, we actually had the tekat demo, and I think it was, to be fair, the first time I tried it after 4 or 5 months, and I salute all the artists and the students who took on this challenge. Yeah. All right.
What inspired you to cut this makeup into?
As I share, I was doing it on my, I'm a textile artist. I have my own label of wearable arts. So I did that on my kimono jacket. You know, I did some shashikos, or I did some shibori on cloud. So this is just an expansion, it's like level up, you know. Because like for wearable art, you need to complete in like certain time frame. Otherwise, you wouldn't know how to tag your the merchandise. But for art piece, we can really like give a more longer length of time to produce something different.
All right. And I think we'll move on because we've got quite a number of artists to go through. The next we have Afiza Abu Bakar, who creates hand-woven textiles that practices intuition and human touch over mechanical precision. So you can already see there's a contrast between what she does as well as the cut. And and her work is basically the cascading into existence, which we take a look and see her sampling. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think we'll let her go into the presentation.
Yeah.
Okay. Can everyone speak up? Speak louder. If
Okay,
possible.
I'll try. So, my first reaction, I really remembered the time when I first learned skiing because I was excited at first, and then I realized the mind body connection is difficult, and then I got exhausted, and I lost confidence.
All in one day.
Yes, all in one day. All in one day. Yeah, so that was my first impression of the cut when I after the first day. Next. So for this project, the first question that I asked myself was, what base am I going to do the tekat on? Because traditionally it's velvet, and then so it's about whether I want to go with tradition or do I want to be true to my process. And because if I use uh, the velvet, that's following the tradition. But then I feel like it's a betrayal to my journey because why I started weaving was because I wanted to give value to my original work, which is weaving my own textile. So if I use another textile for my work, I feel like I'm betraying my own journey. So then I decided, no, I'm just going to go with my own textile. Um, because I do also feel like the responsibility of us artists in this project is to actually filter out, to filter the works of Tekat through our own lenses. So if I did not challenge that with my own textile, I will not be doing my job. So that's when I decided to use my own textile for this work. Next slide. So what it means then for me to use my own hand-woven textile. Uh, that would mean that I will need to create a textile base that is dense and robust enough to match the velvet that I use traditionally. So I actually did many experiments, which is in the basket that are passed around. Those are a few experiments that I did before I end up having the right textile for it. So I experimented with materials, weaving density, and then also the silhouette pattern to create that flower wasn't easy as well. So what you see on the left photo there is not what is there. It's still on the trial process. I still couldn't get the flower to pop up very nicely in that weaving. And then on the right side video, that's when I was weaving the background of my scroll there, where I had woven the very thin, because I wanted it to be sheer, the background of it. So that's when I was weaving that material. Yes. And then next, after the textile, is the mempulo then. So the mempulo was also one of the hardest things for me to figure out because it's a totally unknown territory for me. And even when we learn with cardboard. So I tried with cardboard, I tried with cut felt. If you see in the 4 photos there, the lower left, I have some cut felt there. So I tried with cut felt as well, and then but they all didn't work very well. The cardboard seems to be floating on my textile rather than, I wanted it to grow on my textile. So it was floating, it didn't feel right. So I ended up using felt that it felt right. The felt fiber felt right. So that's the video of me felting, growing the felt on my textile. Yes. Yeah. And then how I incorporated it. That's yes. Oh yes, so fast. I was fast. Cotton. Yes. Glued like how they taught us.
And then you pulled it off? Or you just cut it out?
No, I didn't pull it off. I cut it off here. Yeah, it's still intact there. Yeah. So That's actually a 2 days work. It wasn't recorded in one day, I think. I really did it very, very slowly.
Compared to your colleagues are very fast.
Yeah, so the breakthrough moment. Okay, that's how I look when I do my tekat. So much concentration. I have that goggles because it was for when I was doing my embroidery, and I did try to do a little bit of like silver jewelry. That's when I got that goggles, and it worked very well for this work because I need to really really see, because like if you've seen Jan talk about it, it's really like row by row. I really need to see where I'm pushing the needles in and out. So I use this.
Anyone wants a model number can speak to me.
Yeah, so I think the breakthrough moment for me when I feel okay, I can do this, was when I figured out the textile, I figured out the mompulo, which is the raised base for the gold thread. Then only I can concentrate and be in this state for 2 months. Yes, I actually did. I think it was 2 months, 2 whole months to do the tekat itself, because I did a gradation on the tekat itself. So it goes from gold to silver. So I had to really plan my gold thread so that the colors gradiate very smoothly. Yeah.
So I think for Afiza, she started early. She started early and she planned quite or experimented quite a bit enough to know what she would eventually land and use. Yep, sorry, you had a question?
You're putting that cotton on it and pushing it with the needle. What was it and why does you do it?
Okay. What was it? It's needle felting.
So deep, like it was just like a small piece of.
Yes, it's actually wool. It's a wool fiber. You needle felt it so that it will be dense. Because if I just put the fiber there, there's a lot of air. So when I pull the golden thread, it will shrink. It will shrink and it will not stay in the shape that I want it to. So I needle felt it so that it is firm enough to have that shape. And so that when I'm, yes, so that's a process itself, because I did all of that, needle felt all of that into that shape. Yeah. Yes.
Because I think with Afiza's work, most of the tekat that you see around here use the cardboard, but she feels that the cardboard is too stiff for her work. Hence feeling and finding the felt.
Yes. So when I was doing this, because the idea was to have the wisteria, because the scroll itself is an object where in Japan people put in the tatami room, change it by the season. So you do not put the same artwork whole year round, you change it by the season. So I chose wisteria because it's the flower of May. So if I extend that a little bit more after this, I would say, yeah, I can do. I'm. I felt like, yes, probably I can do this for like different seasons with different flowers, maybe in a smaller scale. Mm. Yeah, but and also I feel like we have inherited this tekat technique, so I have to do something with this inheritance. So I may explore other things as well with the card, slowly but surely, to preserve and continue the baton that we have all passed. We were passed now, so we'll see. I will try to explore a little bit, yeah, here and there.
All this is being recorded, yeah?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh no.
Next, I'd like to call upon Natalia. Natalia is a student with Malaysian Institute of Arts, MIA. And when we reached out to your lecturer for this project, sorry, did you all volunteer for it or were you all selected?
Most of us were selected.
Okay.
Of course, there are like seniors and people who've already graduated,
Right.
and those were volunteers.
Okay.
But
So
yeah,
you were selected.
I was selected. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So you
Yeah,
could
go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, you can just go to the next step. Yeah. So First reaction to this art style. I do a lot of hands-on work, a lot of like hand sewing, a lot of embroidery. So when I first came in and first saw people doing tekat, it kind of felt like, oh, this is like a version of embroidery, right? But then when I started doing it myself, I quickly realized it is not. So it was like I was excited, I was nervous, I felt almost like an imposter, like I was intruding on someone else's, like this is someone else's thing. But like the more I learned about it and the more I experienced it, the more I realized like, no, like this is art. Anyone can do art. But yeah, I was really scared to mess up. Like as they've said before, you have to be very precise with it. So I was kind of nervous. But oh yeah, the breakthrough moment. There's something so incredible about seeing your first motif finished. I don't know how to explain it. Like I'm not sure if that's universal for all the other participants, but like after like you're doing it, and you're like, oh man, like I don't know if this looks good, I don't know if this looks right, I don't know if it matches what I envisioned. But then after seeing it like completely covered in that gold thread, there's something so satisfying. You're like, oh, yes, like this is it. This is exactly what I wanted. So it was so motivating to see. Like it really gave me the positivity I needed and the effort to finish the project. So my personal art style, I like to do a lot of hands-on, so things that you can pick up, things that you can look through. So I really wanted to do that with my art. I do a lot of, you can see some of the books that I've created. Those are all hand-bound, and the covers are made by me. That doll right there, I hand-sewed all the clothes, I painted the face, and I did the hair. So I really wanted to do something that you can like touch and feel and experience with this project. So yeah, that's how I kind of meshed them together. So next, I love how versatile Tekat is. Like, it doesn't have to be just gold on velvet. Like, of course, that is where it started, and of course, we have to honor that. But there are so many things that you can do with it. So an art style that I love the alternative style. I love like dark and grunge. And seeing one of my classmates work, actually, it was a black bag with silver thread on it. I was like, that's incredible, that's genius. And so I really want to do something like that in a like alternative style. So on that bottom picture right there, that is a jewelry box that I made, and this is just a small version. And I think I want to do a bigger one, and I think it looks so good with that silver on top of the black. Like I would love to do something like that. So I really want to do more with the cut, more with that, alternative style. Is that everything?
That's it. And yeah, thanks. I think what was interesting about when I saw your slides, I didn't think I'd ever see Tekat and Goh
Yeah.
but I think that is the objective of this project, is how do we bring some of these traditional and contemporary ways of expressions together. So I got quite excited and I wanted to ask, I was like, when you do that, let me know, because I'm very tempted. I'll be very excited.
And I think I'm a little biased too. Like I love the goth art style, so I'm looking for any way to like, oh, how can I use this in my
Yeah, and I can see it with the silver.
Yes, right.
Now I get it. All right. Sorry, I forgot to do your brief introduction. Natalia is like originally from Florida. Yeah, so I think we might see that cross the borders. And yes, her work is upstairs. It's called Persepolis Pomegranate, and it's a book which she actually made herself, and it actually got the cut on it. So if you do have the time or you've not seen it, please go upstairs. Thank you so much, and thank you for saying yes to the project.
Thank you. Oh my God.
All right, I think we can pass the mic on to our artist. Daisy Uy is a contemporary visual artist with a background in interior design, whose practice incorporates translucent textiles or sul and installation. Through learning tekat, she brought together the craft's intricate ornamentation with a material rarely associated with it, as seen in her work Memories Written on Earth. which is the one on that my far right. Yeah. So Daisy, go ahead.
Thank you, Charmaine.
Yeah.
Thank you everyone for coming. This is like just introduce myself. I'm an interior
Daisy.
designer. So I work in interior design field, so I exposed to using materials to do art. So that's why, because my work is mainly about spirituality, so I want to have material that is not too solid. That's why I choose translucent fabric and embroidery. So so that's the beginning of my art journey. Even though I'm an interior designer, but I would explore. I would love to explore more on materials, concept, and everything. So next one. So this is just sharing on how I incorporate Bertekad in my work, because Bertekad is very serious and very neat. Um, like, and then my two fabric are very messy with messy embroidery. So I want to create something which clashing energy, but also cohesive and harmony together. So first thing is I incorporate some colors in the cut. So I have some other pink, yellow, purple color that it can relate back to my embroidery background. So so I mix the threads. So I have a few, and then I have a lot of gradient. And then because the two are very not solid and it's see-through. So the velvet is like very thick fabric. So the cut works better on thicker fabric. So I do a base with cotton, and then I put on the tulle. I cut smaller pieces of tulle, and then only I put my bamboo on it. Then I do the cut. So that's how I did the flowers. So after the flowers, I sew them separately on the background with embroidery. Yeah, so it's not easy to do also, because um, the tekat, right, we have to sew it very closely under the bungalow. So when I cut out the cotton, I won't see the black threads. So I try, and then also I did some strengthening on the
She's really
fabric
quite well, like in the
using
middle, you know. That's why she
embroidery
can cut
in
the
background.
edges, because
Yeah.
with mine not so much in the middle. So if I cut, I think it's gonna free.
The most challenging part of the cat is
Because
actually
it's very good at the middle.
uh,
Her V is like doing
because
very
I
well.
design my own bungalow. So some part of it is very hard for me to do it nicely, especially the corners. The corners of the
Corners are
turning of the
difficult.
flowers,
Actually,
and
I like
also the ending
how
corners.
it's done.
Because the
Yours
threads
is
keep
beautiful.
slipping
It's so well.
underneath, and then I have to redo, and I have to modify the bungalow, because we design just like what I feel like I want to design like this, but somehow to design a really good bungalow, it takes time also to experiment. So I just improvise lah. If I cannot do it, then I just cut.
Oh, okay. Cheating.
So I have to it's like okay lah.
She told me how.
So that's I think that's the challenging part. And then yeah, the next one. What's the one piece of advice to say something? Because the cat is a bit like you have to feel it with your heart and hand together, so that it is like working together. You cannot just rely on your hand or rely on your mind or the head.
Yeah.
And also when we do it, it's like I would say that you need to build the muscle memory.
Yes.
So through practice, but we are actually all human beings are very intuitive lah. In certain points, like learning how to drive, you can feel your car and the surrounding and everything. So it's like same thing. You can feel the tracks. You can feel everything.
Needle become an extension of your finger.
Yeah. all in one something like that.
Understand? Understand?
So it's like I think practice build muscle memory. Yeah. So that's it. That's my takeaway.
I think any questions? I think Daisy brought up a very interesting point, which is the design of your motifs or your patterns, the mapulo. Because if you look at the traditional tekat, most of it is flora and fauna, so that you can actually tekat and close it at the end. So everything is pointed at the end. So the designs that you see, which has a point at the end, it's easier to finish, right?
Yes.
And I think what Daisy was saying is hers is not as pointed.
Yes.
So I think that's where your challenge
difficult.
was.
Yeah, need to like learn how to really do a
Yeah.
good mapulo.
Yeah.
So only I can have own design.
Yeah. So the design of the mapulo is helpful in terms of how you work through it and close it. So the ones that did all the pointed ones, you know, that they sort of
Thought about it.
thought about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for that. And I'm going to move on to Hannah Nazamil, who's on my immediate right. And Hannah, I would like to point out, is one of the three artists in this exhibition who is not a textile artist. Right? So their craft is actually not with a needle and thread. And I actually invited Hannah because of the way she described her painting process to me. I think if you see her work there, with the 1, 2, and 3, the painting is her general work, is what she does. And I remember asking her about how she does it. And she was very detailed and precise about how she used color pigmentation and how they use. And as she was talking, I was looking at her going, this artist is quite meticulous. I think she can Bertekad. And I think that's how I invited her. I just turned around after she explained her work and said, would you want to try Tekat? And I'm very glad that she said yes, and I'll just pass the mic to her.
Hi everyone. So for the first question of what was my first reaction when I began learning Tekat, it was mind-opening. So being an artist who comes from a discipline of drawing, painting, I'm quite meticulous in terms of the technical part of things. So when it comes to replicating what we see, I want it to be perfect. And which what Kak Faz always said, I have 20 years experience, you have 2 hours, you can't compare. But having heard that, I felt challenged. But it's kind of like how I am in learning new techniques or new mediums, and when you go into something that is unknown, you kind of have to understand from A to Z how things work. Only then can we like move it around to what works for us. So for my first reaction when I began learning Tekat was letting go of parts of the process. Although my dyes are very flowy, and I would say according to them, this part I needed to use both of my hands. I need to relearn the use of it. So I needed to learn to use both my right and left hand in ways they have not been used before. Yeah. And then from there, it also was the challenge of me making sure that I don't lose my current practice, like what Afiza said, like do not betray your current practice. I felt that because when you're learning something new, you tend to be very immersed in it, and you want to do everything in it, to the point that what if I embellish everything I have, something like that. So I tried my best to make sure it doesn't stray so much away, and also honor my previous compass and my current compass of always creating art based on the medium and how it flows. Next. So the breakthrough moment, a realization that made me feel, okay, I can actually do this, was when it feels like second nature. Also similar to what Daisy said. It's second nature, like when you drive. It just goes on. It happens. I think the process of it being small and me bringing it around with me everywhere I go while making it made it easier. When I tell you I brought it everywhere, I did it during Raya. I brought it to open houses. I brought it everywhere with me in the car. Any chance I could do it, I do it. And from that, I guess it became second nature. And to the point where I was doing the Tekat demo that I had to teach people, I noticed the difference between current me and the past me doing it. Like when Daisy said, when Yan said we had to serong the jarum, yeah, I could hear Kak Ros saying serong, serong, serong. And I guess now I understood what she meant by practice.
So when you were bringing it around, or when during Raya and all that, were people asking you
Yes.
what and why?
Yes,
Yeah.
but I was also surprised that some of my relatives say, "Oh, Tekat. Do you know that if you ever wanted to get married, I have a set you could borrow."
You don't have to make your own.
Also, how it's somehow related to me. I study in Perak, and my nieces call me Yo, which is a Perak thing to call. And so my auntie said, "Oh, you're actually doing something that's also related to Perak."
You want to kahwin?
Yeah. So, how did I incorporate the guide with my practice? So, with my practice, I believe that mediums have their own intelligence. They can tell you what they can and cannot be. And in honoring my discipline or my practice, I did that first, and then I looked at how the cut can be incorporated within those files, within those negative spaces, and where the previous medium allowed for the cut to enter, and where the cut felt like, oh, I could do something here. Maybe I don't want to be here. Which is why when Shamin said the gold embroidery somehow floated away in between the process, it's also within that conversation of how the cut didn't want to be there.
I like that.
So in exploring next with the cut, this is actually one of the pieces before I did pertemuan, but it was an experiment to see if my current practice and what the cut is can gel together. Was me trying to experiment with a thread composition and how I wanted the work to look like. So I guess whatever it is, I'm hoping that the surface and time allows me to create and maybe more experimenting on it and trying to understand how it can flow together. Because right now I feel like it's still close to traditional tekat, although the shapes are slightly different. There is space for me to explore what my voice can bring into this practice.
Thank you. And I think why I find this work interesting as well is because you didn't use the Permida, right?
No.
Yeah, it's because Hannah didn't use the Permida, so she could do the tekat direct onto a stretch canvas. So any visual artist with a stretch canvas, I'm putting it out there. Yes, I'm prime that you can do it. I'm prime stretch canvas. That means the craft of tekat is actually quite accessible. You don't need a Permida to do it. Yes, sorry, question?
I have a question. Not specific to any artist, it's anyone who is talking today who wants to pick it up. So I've heard the word perfect a few times, sempurna a few times. So I wanted to know, I was just curious, within the process of learning the new skill, inheriting skill, and also implementing it in your own work or in your current skill to express what you have in your mind, what is your definition of perfectness atau lebih yang dipanggil sebagai kesempurnaan dalam seni? I know it's a bit abstract, but I would love to understand with your mind, if any of you are interested in picking up that question.
So I guess the question is, in your mind, what would you consider perfect when it comes to the cat? This project, when it comes to this project.
Can I add on something to that? Because I was thinking about that term too. I'm wondering also just how gendered that is.
How gendered?
Yeah.
The perfectionism?
I would think perfection is just next door.
Expectations. Just how the expectation that of people of different genders have about what is perfection, that figures into craft because it is, a gendered practice. Sorry, I hope you don't mind me.
For me, I think there's no perfection because at least for my practice, I think this perfection is when you can see enough. Because I think in my work, it's sometimes not always what you can put on, it's what you can pull out. It's not adding, it's subtracting. So when you can subtract enough, then it, I think it's more like a feeling. So when you can subtract enough to feel that this is good, this is
done.
okay,
Yeah.
then I don't know if you can call it perfect, but that's perfect for you at that point of time, at that moment. So that's how I feel.
Yeah.
If you ask about perfection, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. If you want,
I think to answer first of all, the
Right.
question of,
Yeah.
of perfection, I think if you look at the traditional tekat in the room on the right, I think when we, from what I've heard from the workshops and the learning, there is an emphasis on seeing each line side by side, right? Each line side by side, and that takes time, experience, practice to get it perfect. I don't want to ask you to do a comparison, but and then if you come to this room and you sort of work around, sometimes you can see where the artist started and how they improved through their works, right? So I think there is a perfect in terms of technique in that sense, right? Yeah. In
As
terms
for
of the
gender,
gendered
gender, I don't know.
Else is more of a craft.
Yeah.
Sorry?
I think that one is more of a craft.
I'd agree.
Okay.
So it's probably not a question for the artists,
Yeah.
but maybe for the artisans, they might have.
Yeah.
So correct. So that's I think that's how people are looking at perfect when it comes to the cat, right?
Yeah. I don't think it's like regarding like, oh, a specific gender might feel like they are more hard on themselves. I think it's just like if you work in the arts, there is this level that you hold yourself to no matter what gender you are. Like if I had to summarize it, perfection is like something that like it's what I envisioned in my head, but it's also something I could see myself like, oh, I'm gonna hand this to someone else and I want them to be impressed. Will they be impressed by what I've done? And if they are, that's perfect. That's all I want. And I think that that sort of feeling encompasses like no matter what gender you are, I feel like if you work in the arts, that's just something that is kind of like built in. Like it's like, oh, is this impressive? Is this what I see in my head? So I think that's just everybody, you know?
But isn't there a woman to make tekat? Or will men also do it?
Yeah.
I think traditionally it was more women, but I think now that anyone who wants to learn, yeah, they're actually open to teaching it, and there are both genders sort of working at the cat.
Yeah.
Sorry, one last question. Yeah.
So we know that when it comes to this intricate art that takes so much time and skill, and we see it's already getting simplified over time, right? And obviously, you like to want to do it full time, right? To make a business out of it, or to actually be able to live off the art. So what's the situation currently, or what would need to happen for artists in Malaysia to still keep cultivating it at the level as it used to be? Like intricate, not simplifying or not doing less, but at the same time for the artists to actually have the comfort of living. Is it more commercial support? Is it more funding? Or is it actually Tekka doing great and artists can do Tekka full time and feel comfortably?
Okay, I think when it comes to, from what I've seen from this project, which is what we wanted to the traditional is still I think the bulk of the business still comes from basically they sort of sell to or they sell to royalty, right? It's the royal families that are buying tekat for their weddings, for their culture, and if you look at the tekat, it's very heavy. So it might take them about 5 to 6 months to do a piece. Is that I would say possible for contemporary artists to spend that much time on a work? Yes, but would they want to do it? I don't know. So what I would say, from what I heard, I think from what I heard, so I think from this project, and I think for Bertekad to move ahead into the contemporary space is the kind of works that you're seeing here. A bit of a downsizing of the amount of tekat used, but combined with their own sort of visual representation of practices. Then I think tekat can continue to go into a contemporary space. So it doesn't have to be a mat which you sort of have a wedding on or hantaran. What do you call that in English? Gifts.
Dowry?
Yeah, dowry. Yeah. So I think there are various aspects within the visual arts and even upstairs, right? I think you've seen the cut on bags, on lamps, on books, and these are from the MIA students who don't have any sort of weight of saying that it comes for royalty. So I think this room is quite a good indication of how traditional tekat can move forward. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that if I understand your question correctly, I think the aim of this project is not to find new tekat embroiderers. It is to introduce, because it is so hidden that most of us have never seen it before. Most of us have never touched it before. We didn't know what it was. It was that hidden. So I think our job was to bring it to light and to show other ways of this technique can be used in contemporary settings without actually compromising or touching that area, which is the traditional one, in hope that it will continue in some ways it will be contemporarized, but when people understand and see the contemporarized art of it, some of the clientele might go there again because they want to see the traditional ones. And I think that's our job here in this project. Yeah.
All right. I'm sorry. It's been interesting, but I'm going to have to move this.
Okay. Thank you.
Can I please invite Dennis, Yancy, Nadira, and Rahul?
I know.
There's some seats on the side. If anyone is finding it in the middle quite hot, I think you can move to the side as well. All right. I'm actually going to start with Venice. We're going to start with you. Yeah. All right.
Hello.
Okay. Is everyone settled? All right. So I'm going to introduce Venice. And Venice, who also known as Chausian, is an artist from Sabah, Borneo, whose practice centers on textile techniques such as crochet, embroidery, and bead weaving. But before that, I'd like to wish you a happy Keamatan Festival. Right? And thank you for being here with us. Right? Yeah, and I think we can go straight into your presentation.
Happy Kamatan. So, what was my first reaction when I first began learning Bertekat is I'm very excited. Zin was the one that actually put my name into the group, introduced me to Shamin, so I have the opportunity to be part of this project. I remember when I first see the cut online, my first thought is, I think it makes by machine because it looks so neat. The work by the professional artisan is just so neat. I cannot comprehend that it's like hand embroidered. So yeah, when I first know that I have the chance to learn it, I was very excited. Yeah, that's basically my reaction.
Yes, and that would have been Venice. Yeah.
Okay, so what I find most challenging about learning Tekat is actually combining my own culture from Borneo culture. So the pattern here, I think is perfect for today because it's also the Kamatan season. So the pattern here you see is actually four person together by head, and in the middle is the clock. The human pattern is two male and two female. So it's like a symbol of unity where everyone comes together to celebrate unity, to celebrate happiness, to share their problems. So I think that's a very meaningful pattern for myself because I want to be closer to my own community. And yeah, so during the process, I have to be more careful in terms of, I think this is like a heritage thing, like the tekat itself is like a traditional embroidery, Malay embroidery technique, and mixing it with my own pattern from the Murut culture, I feel like it has to be very careful. So I talked to Shamin about this, and she approved, and that's how I proceed. Yeah, I just like I showed her my concern, like, is this appropriate? Like, is this the right thing to do? So we had this conversation through online before I start doing the tekat itself. Yeah. And how did I incorporate the gut with my own art practice? So my day job is tattooing, and the first picture is me trying to get the pattern symmetrical by using natural light. That's the technique I learned when I was a tattoo apprentice. Like the pattern from the picture from the third picture is the photo of the mempulur that I carved it out from cardboard. I remember God first told me that back in the day where they don't have the laser cut, they have to hand cut everything and stack them together to create like a thickness for the mempulur. Um, and then after doing the tekat, I use beads and sequins to do the embroidery because that's my background. I do bead embroidery. Yeah. I think that's the most important advice because I think it looks easy at first. And like all the artists say, when you first start and you notice that it's not easy at all, like you have to use a lot of time to get used to the tool and also the materials and use your intuition a lot. So yeah, just be patient. And what am I exploring next with the gut? This is a photo I found online. I found it very interesting. So my mempulur, which is the cardboard, I think all my materials and tools are very basic. So I use all the materials that provided by Gatfas, the same permidang, the same size of clothes, and also the technique, everything, I just use the same one. I was a bit afraid to experiment with the original technique. So after doing it and also seeing so many artists like being so adventurous with their materials and tools, it really inspiring me to try to do more with it. So in the picture, you can see that the embroidered piece is raised in a different layers. I think it's very interesting. Like it almost looks like a sculpture. So in the second picture, you can see the mempulu is like not just the cardboard, but also with different material. I think the first one reminds me of Afiza's artwork, like the wool. Yeah. So that's what I'm hoping to have the chance to explore next. I think Afiza said something like, it's such a waste if we learn this tekat and only do one show. So hopefully there's another one. We can do more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
I think that's all for me.
yeah. Thank you. Thank you. I just like to point out as well, during the workshop, we all had a 2-day workshop where each of the artists were given a small motif, like the one that you see at the hair of this artwork here. And Venice was the only one that finished her actual motif over 2 days and was given an A plus by the artisan. Yeah, because I think once we went into
lunch I was doing.
Yes, yes.
In the zone.
She was in the zone. Yeah. And I think the other very interesting thing was when she showed us the motif of using Borneo motifs or tekat to use Borneo motifs. It's like it's to an extent such a simple concept, but we in Malaysia we don't do that. We're using tekat to do Borneo patterns, which I think was really, really heartfelt in that sense. Thank you. Yeah. All right. And we will now pass on the mic. Sorry, I realized you're the only guy on the panel, Russell. Russell is a graduate of Malaysian Institute of Art, an emerging fashion designer, and very, very talented batik artist. Yeah. And and through learning of the cut, I think if you can see his work, he has combined another simple idea of putting batik and the cut. Why not? You know? And I will let him talk further about his learnings and how he came about his work. Thank you, Russell.
So thank you, Shamin. Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, so I graduated from MIA recently, and then I got to see like the message that they have this project in the alumni group. They sent it to the group, and I was like, can I join? I'm not really sure because it was like looks like they're giving like existing like current students there, but still I approached to the head, and then he was like, yeah, why not? So yeah, here I am. So first question, what did I find most challenging about learning Tekat? So as what discussed just now, like to reach that perfection of Tekat, you really need to arrange the threads side by side. So in order to achieve that, I find like it's not during the Tekat process, even when you start to like gathering the threads and everything, it started like right there. So for me, when I did all that, it was a lot of chaos because like I'm still new, of course. Whenever I was like gathering the threads, the spools they just like come off the whole thing, or even like those four, you need to gather like four threads into like one together, and I was like gathering them, they all just like got tied up together, so I had to like cut off, and then I was like, should I just start over or should I just like tie a knot and then continue? But I don't know if it will show my album or not, so it was like.
So what did you do?
And then still, I actually tied it back and then
Start again.
but luckily it didn't reach to the part that the knot is like visible on the album. So yeah, thank goodness. So yeah, so for me like the most challenging part is like how do you deal with the threads, including like how they say you need to sarong the needle, and yeah, that's how you like control the threads, the arrangement of it in order to create like something more neat, like to reach that level of perfection. I mean, yeah. Next. So, what was the breakthrough moment, a realization that I feel okay, I can actually do this? So, well, during the workshop, that's the first time. I was like starting. I was like, okay, it seems kind of easy, but when during the process, then I was like, it was just a two day workshop, and after that 2 day, I haven't even finished like half of it. So I started like, do I really have time to like do this? Because I don't do like art piece like full time. My full time is like a fashion designer. So I was like every day I go back from my home, I was like I have to continue to do it. And while I'm doing it, I was thinking like, do I really have time? Can I really do this? How much should I design? And then after I finished one piece, I was like, yeah, maybe I can. And then I started designing like my own mempulo and everything. And when I started to do the mempulo again, the question starts back. It's like, can I really do this? Because every time it's like a new design, a new shape, like a new experience. Because I'm not repeating like same things. So yeah, I would say like it's like a cycle over and over again. But every time, hopefully, it gets like a little bit better. Yeah, and that's the picture of like the first the cut and then the butterfly the cut. And for this one, well, yes. So, graduating textile and fashion design from MIA. I actually learned batik from the textile course. So, when I saw this project, then I was like, yeah, I learned batik already. So why not the cut? Since both of them are like our country's like traditional craft. So I was like, yeah, what will happen if I mix those two together? So this is how I try to um, that's how the thought begins, and then I try out how do I combine the cat motifs and my batik motifs all together. And actually through the process, because I don't know why, maybe I was trained like during college, I see things more like a very technical way. So when I see the cat, I was like, okay, so what thread is this? What effect? Like how is it made of? Like what's the difference? So for me, I find that a comparison between like batik and tekat. Batik is more flat, more matte, and more on like colors and 2D patterns. So for tekat, it's more like 3D, like not exactly 3D, it's more like a floating, like a raised design and like a more tactile, and it shows more of like a texture and shininess, metalness, and more flat color. It's like a flat, solid color compared to what I do. So I think it's like a very good juxtaposition to like mix those two together and create like a nice storytelling or image of it. So yeah, that's how it. So like this one. And yeah, this one is also, you can see like the patterns and how the texture, the matte and the shininess, like the comparison between those two. Yes. And here are the videos of the working in progress. Yeah. So basically, yeah, this is how like the left one is like how I do the batik work, and the right one is the cut work. So you can see like the difference of the working process. Is one is more like a painting, and the other one is more like an embroidery. And after I painted, although it's like layer by layer of wax and colors, after everything is washed out, it turns flat and like 2D. But for the cut, it's more like a building up process. Like I added like the mumplus on top, and then try to like put threads, just cut off all the excess, and then it becomes like a more floated like 3D design that can you can kind of like visually separate those two and also at the same time combine them together. I would say, yeah. Huh. Okay, that's a double west brother. Okay, so what am I exploring next with Tekat? So when I actually first heard of Tekat, the and I check like the making process of it, the first thing that comes to mind is that I want to make something 3D, like literally 3D. That is like the whole thing is made out of the cut. But in the end, I think the time frame is like it's not really suitable. So maybe next time. So yeah, I was like maybe try to do something fashion art or even like textile culture, something 3D. I just came from like GMBB to watch the Untitled exhibition there, and I just saw quite a few a garment display there, like really like arty. I was like, yeah, why not? Yeah, it's a well, let's see in the future, but I think it might take a lot of like research and development and trial and error. But yeah, that's what I'm thinking to explore with the cut so far. But also combine it with batik. Yeah. Thank you.
Any questions so far? Or we move on? All right. And I'll call on the next artist. We will have Zim. Yeah. Zim. Oh, so sorry. Zim is an artist with a background in architecture, whose practice explores place, memory, and lived experience through textile, craft making, mark making, and text. Her work, Tekat dengan Tekat, from which this session actually borrows its title from, reflects on the determination and discipline needed to learn this heritage craft. Zim's work is the conceptual work that's hanging there, the one with the hand. Yeah, and I'll let Zim take us through it.
Hello everyone. Yeah, just now it's me, Zimnor, and Chickadee. That's Chickadee. She's gonna be my assistant for this. So first question, what was your first reaction when you began learning the cat? So exactly that. Nice, another textile skill to conquer, because I like to collect textile techniques. Like literally I collect it on me right now. I have a crochet, knitting, embroidery on me. So the cat, I'm familiar with the cat as something that I saw when my older cousins got married and their bridal bedrooms was filled with velvet and gold and don't touch it, and all that. So I never got to touch to see whether it's actually 3D or anything, but apparently it was the cut. But yeah, so I was excited, and the photo of my hand was actually the photo of the work that we did in Kuala Kangsar. I was honored and lucky enough to be one of the three artists to get to go and learn with the Adi Guru herself. Um, and I was the slowest. Everyone was like swearing and speeding. Okay, no, no. One person was swearing. I won't say who. And then another person was, no, both of them were speeding, reaching the places where they can ask questions to the Adi Guru, while I was just like taking time to understand why, why does it lay that way? Why do we have to move that way and everything? So my brain was trying to logic everything before I can move on. And then I came back and I put my down on the table, and then Chickadees decided, yeah, that's my meow down now. So, thank you. Meow. Sorry, trigger warning, blood. Okay, that's a lot. Yeah. Woohoo. Fun. Okay. What did I find most challenging? Well, the needles that they use is very thin because you need to use thin needles to reach those thin crevices. And, and thin needles means lots of accidents. And what else did I find challenging? Yeah. Hold on. Yeah, and also I think someone mentioned already about how Hannah mentioned about how your hands are moving in new ways. So I am aware that when you learn new techniques, especially crafting techniques, it's also recalibrating how your hand works. So I was like prepared for it because I've seen people cry in front of me when they were trying to learn crochet. Anyway, sorry. Um, so I was like prepared to cry myself. So when the Adi Guru and Kak Faz and Kak Rosa was telling me to put one hand above and one hand below, I felt like it's an important thing to try to figure that out. So that's why I was very slow in the two workshops that we had. The next question was, what was the breakthrough moment? Oh, no, no, wait. What was the breakthrough moment of realization that I can actually do this? Let me look at my notes because I forget everything once I put it there. Okay, because I found the rhythm and pace in the process. Once I found my rhythm and pace, once my muscles started to um, talk to my brain, and my brain talked to my heart, actually. Then I was like, yeah, it was like, okay. So Hannah said it was like riding, it was driving. And then Afiza said it was skiing. For me, it was like riding a bike because it was just like all these literal scrapes on my hand. And then suddenly I got it. And it also helped that for my work, I use freeform embroidery for tekat, for tekat, which means determination. And I made that first before I start on the cut piece. So I had that determination in my face. So like literally like you have to do it. So yeah, it's a good so it's a breakthrough and affirmation in my face. Next please. Yes, so I also made a sculpture hand, not with the cat. It's my first time making a sculpture hand also, although I do have a background in sculpture. Really? Yeah. My MA is in sculpture. Really? Yeah. Okay, so that hand did not help me with the tekat. I wish it was real so it can help me with tekat. So okay, so I had the idea
For me, it was not much about experimentation. It was literally my idea formed immediately after I did the cut. And even before that, I was listening not just from Lina. Lina mentioned that she Googled Tekat. So she Googled it spelling wrongly. But other people kept telling me, oh, I spelled it wrongly, so I didn't get to see it. And I was like, huh, so this is a normal occurrence. You can work with this. So I had an idea. It just, the hand just literally floated in my head, and I just really wanted to highlight the hand that made the work because I was also very I feel like a lot of people don't appreciate the process and the skills behind a lot of craft. They appreciate the craft as a product, but they don't appreciate the craft as a product of years of torture, no, like years of work. So, and then after that, the initial font that I tried to use was very tacky Malaysiana because I felt like because it's for weddings and it was for weddings in the olden or not olden days like I was around that day. Oh, I'm old also, but then in like the 80s and all that, so it was very like tacky. People call kampong and all that. I wanted to use that, but then I saw other works were like so beautiful, and I was like, oh, come on, it has to be a cohesive exhibition, right? So I beautified my font. And the uh, the decision to use black on black freeform embroidery, sorry, is because I want the tekat to not overshadow overshadow the tekat. And I talked to Charmaine about it, and we're like, oh, what should I use? What should I use? And then she suggested black on black. And I tried with the normal embroidery floss and the metallic floss, and I find that the metallic floss really has this, when used in that freeform style with that stitching, has this very nice scaly, watery, reflective effect that I felt like, ooh, okay, so that's why I chose that one. Yeah. Ooh, Chiquitis is back. Okay, so what is the one piece of advice you would give someone? Okay, so yes, be present, be in the process. Correct, Chiquitis bagus. Yes, my work itself is already has already spelled it out like tekat, tekat, tekat. You have to be very determined if you want to learn tekat. But it's not just necessarily tekat. Anything that you want to learn, new things, you have to be determined, but you also have to be present in the process, meaning don't rush it, feel everything, feel your mistakes, understand why those mistakes make the mistakes in the what's that? Like the mistakes in your movement uh, effects mistakes in the piece will cause something cause an effect. Okay, dah dapat. Okay, so don't miss the details of the process basically. So slide 6. Okay, Tikadis asked me a question. This cat wants to know if Tekat is the catalyst for your next meowster piece. Let me know for reals. Okay, sorry, I really love puns. Can't you tell? Anyway, so so I mentioned that I'm working towards a solo, and I want to try to use as much as possible the textile techniques that I've collected, and I'm hoping to do some world building and word playing, so world play kind of series for my solo. Um, and when I mentioned this to, but I also okay. So the application of all these techniques that I've accumulated
are not necessarily traditional. It depends on the concept that I want to portray. So when I mentioned this to Chickadees, she said, so not a purist, but a purist. So I'm like, yeah, correct, and I tap her back. So yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's my sit down comment.
So that was Zine and the sit down comedy, right? Just to share, we do have an artist group WhatsApp where we actually use to communicate quite a lot. I ask questions, I talk to the artists there, and we have a lot of cat videos, cat memes, cat puns in that. But I think within that WhatsApp is also where you see the artists sort of talking to each other and encouraging each other. Because if someone comes in with a problem, you will get a few cat videos, everyone laughs, and then you might get a few suggestions on how to work through certain things. So I think one of the more important things about this project as well is the community that was built to help each other get through the process of the cat. Yeah. So and I think that was very encouraging to see. Having said, we're going to move on to Nadira. All right, Nadira is the second artist who's not a textile artist. In fact, she's a photography artist. And I approached Nadira wanting her to take contemporary photos of the cat. Right? Can we imagine the cat in a different lens? Because Nadira works with very dreamlike photos. Her most recent series are with flowers, and she turned to me and she says, "Can I learn instead?" Right? So I said, "Okay, fine. Why don't you learn and let's see what we have." And I will pass the mic to Nadira. Yeah.
Thank you, Charvin, for letting me learn. Okay, so I'm Nadira Zakaria. As Charvin mentioned, I am a photography artist. I'm also a filmmaker. So I love everything visual. But in my photography, like the lower left, I actually like to make temporary sculptures. I work with objects a lot. And even when I'm photographing people, I'm very hands-on with the props or where I place them. So actually, it's not too far away from working with tekat and materials. So people think photography, you're just a photographer observing and taking a photo, and which it's true to a certain extent. But I also like to be super hands-on. So when Charmin asked, I had actually just came back from learning batik, which was very therapeutic for me, and I tried to work with the chanting, like on top of that. That's like my first batik piece where I wrote the title of my recent exhibition, Ai Mata Ai, over and over and over again. And I felt like, oh, I've already learned batik, like an introduction, and now I get this opportunity to learn tekat, which I knew almost nothing about, except that it's shiny and beautiful. I love everything extra, so I'm like, yes, I think I want to learn. So yeah, that's a photo of me in my studio. So I work with a lot of photography, but in the recent years, I've incorporated materials into my work as well. So wait, what was your first reaction? Excited, shiny. Yes, take me. Let me learn. Okay, next. What did you find most challenging about learning tekat? I think it was hard for me because at that time I was actually grieving a loss, but then it helped me sit with my feelings, and I think that's the power of art. When I'm, my hands are moving, I think I feel like I found the rhythm into it. So the timing was challenging, but technically it's very laborious. It's very detail oriented. Like in photography or in whatever I do, it's more organic, kind of like a Fiza. We can kind of like go with the flow, but with the cut, you have a design and you kind of have to commit to it and you kind of have to finish it. Like in photography, I can take, 10 photos and I can choose the best one. But with tekat, that's it. Like, oh my God, like if I mess up, I can't backtrack. I have to continue going on. And I think that was like the hardest thing for me, but it taught me that it's okay. I'm still learning. Like I had a 2-day lesson versus, Kak Faz who's done it for, decades, and, the Adi gurus. So I think The challenging is to be kind to myself, to be patient with myself, and not to be too hard like Nadira. You're still learning, and it's okay to make mistakes. Like, of course, there was this exhibition coming up, and we're on a tight timeline. I didn't have a lot of time because I have a full time job, and I also had other artwork. So, with the cut, lighting is really important because you're working with shiny threads, and so you think it looks good, and I'm working late at night in my not so brightly lit home, and the next day I'm like, wait a minute, this did not look how it looked last night after I drank coffee. I'm like, so I think it's a lot of factors. Okay, next. What was the breakthrough moment, the realization that made me feel, okay, I can actually do this? When I felt that I could be in my zone. Once I got through the rhythm of it, I think it reminded me how when I first got into photography in the darkroom, printing my own photo, I can get in my zone. And once I start, I can be doing it for 6 hours, 8 hours. So that was when I knew, okay, this is something that I can enjoy. And time just passed. And I also love that though it's super technical, it's very intuitive. I think some of the artists mentioned this. Like you're working with both hands. And before this, like my left hand is kind of useless, but now there's purpose. And the Adi Guru taught me that the left hand, or whichever hand that I decide, one hand is at the bottom and one hand at the top. And once you kind of I don't know, find your way and rhythm on how to do it, it's really like as much as technical, you have to feel it. You can rasu, like where the thread and the angle and everything. And so once I figure out that it's actually intuitive, and I'm an intuitive photographer, I'm an intuitive artist, so that was a breakthrough moment. I'm like, wait a minute, it's heart. It's all heart and technical love. But once you get the technical, yeah. Yeah, so that's me in my zone. We go back. So that's me also. This was, so I got to work in this space in Kuala Kangsar, surrounded by these beautiful items that you would normally see at weddings, at plumbings. And then I actually have an ongoing project revolving around the theme of weddings. So this was also like, aha, I kind of know what I want to do. Which brings us to the next slide. How do you incorporate the cut in your own art practice? Okay, so this is an ongoing project called Andartu. Andartu means anak dari tua, which also means spinster. So it's a project that I have been exploring with the past few years on, is a marriage like a woman's worth? Like, because we're always asked, ever since we're done with high school or when we're a teenager, like, when are you gonna get married? And then when are you gonna have a kid? But men don't really get asked these questions. So what if I am? But so what if I'm not? Like, what's in it to you? So this was a project where I worked with inai, henna, normally found, and then on the palm it says andartu, which is kind of reclaiming, so what if I am? It's kind of like marrying myself, and I use items found in a normal Malaysian traditional wedding, items I would find in stores. So I felt that I could incorporate tekat into this project. So I revisited one of my older photography work, printed on canvas, because I was also trying to figure out, do I print on fabric? What do I print on? And the group was very helpful. I think I asked everyone, like, okay, so now print on canvas, like I did that, so that was very nice. So yeah, so I decided to print one of my hands on canvas, and then where I placed the flowers on the sort of left side, it's through the heart line, and then it goes through the ring finger. So the placement of it was also really important to me, and yeah, I thought it was kind of like really nice. But in the experimentation, I did consider and I did try to do the cut on anthurium petals and leaves, but because it's not embroidery, it's the cut, things just like fell through and it didn't work. But an idea I had was to actually have the cut on these plants, which are usually found in my work, and then do still life photography, maybe paired with the wilting flowers already and having the gold but it did work. We experimented. Okay, next. What is one piece of advice you would give someone interested in learning Tekat? Open heart, have fun, be open to making mistakes, be open to asking questions. Like honestly, with the cut, I don't know about the other artists, but every time I do it, I get in my zone and then I stop. And then I start again a few days later, I forget everything. So it's okay. Like this one night, I asked Vivian, can I have Kappan's number? Like I completely forgot. Like what? How do I start? So I think be kind to yourself. Yeah, take your time, and everybody has their own pace, and it's such a gift to learn this craft, this art, that yeah, that in itself, like I felt really privileged, and I think don't be too hard on yourself. It's fun. Take it as a privilege. If you ever get to learn it, please do. Itu sahaja dari saya. Thank you.
Any questions for the photographer, the cut artist? No, very good. Okay, and I think we're going to round up the session with Yanti Ismail. And Yanti as well is a non-textile artist. In fact, she is a feminist artist whose practice centers on the human figure to explore women's rights, patriarchy, and social injustice. And through learning Tekat, she explores how a traditional craft can serve as a vehicle for contemporary social commentary.
We try.
Right. All right, passing it on to Yanti.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your kind patience with us. It's been a long afternoon. I'll try to breeze through as much as I can. We were given a few questions by Shamin, and so and we got to pick them. So I picked this as the first one. What was your first reaction when you began to learn Tekat? And so this was us at the Adi Guru's house in Kuala Kangsar, and so steeped in history, so steeped in tradition. And for me, actually, my first reaction to Tekat was a problematic one because historically Tekat has not resonated with me. I grew up with seeing Tekat as something that's relegated to the ceremonial, to royalty, to the privileged, to the upper class, none of which applied to me. Entering into the project was difficult for me in the beginning. It was to reconcile what I knew of Tekat, and historically, it's a 600-year heritage craft, and it began in the royal courts of Malacca. Where was I in this? And that was a genuine problem. It was philosophically opposed to what I believed in, and so that was difficult. I'm an activist artist, socially engaged. My work is related to issues driven, gender justice and human rights. How could I resolve that with Tekat? Because Tekat, from everything I've learned, has only ever been presented as something that is it's ceremonial, but it's also decorative. How do I reconcile this so that it makes sense to my own practice, and to be as authentic as I possibly could to my own practice? And I knew that I couldn't approach this purely from as a technique. I admired the skill and the discipline that was required. I respected it, I honored it, but I needed to ask deeper questions. What does it represent? What is it in our identity, in our history? What stories live within it? How do I connect to the social and human concerns? And lastly, I was very, very conscious as well about not disrespecting the artisans and the custodians of the cat. I'm a figurative artist. I knew even before we started working that I was going to introduce a human form. And surprise, surprise, if you've ever seen the cat works in the past, there are no human forms. So my approach to it in the beginning was that, all these questions. Next slide, please. And so what was most challenging about learning Tekat? My esteemed fellow artists have all regaled you with how difficult this is. You know what was most challenging? The answer should be what wasn't challenging. It was, yeah, but you know, that's what makes Tekat what it is. It's highly rigid. It requires high discipline. It's incredibly unforgiving to beginners, you know, so that, but for me, actually, building on what my first slide was about, psychologically, I needed to get out of my own head when I was doing the cut. We had less than 3 months to get good. We had less than 3 months to get good enough to be able to exhibit. And every artist here has spent years, if not decades, honing our skill, honing our craft. It's incredibly vulnerable and difficult for us to come and present a craft that we've just learned in 2 months, and we're not particularly good at it. So that was 3 months. Okay, lah. First month was R&D, doesn't count. And yeah, and it was really hard to just. I think every one of us must have had a crisis of confidence at one point. This is my piece, and at one point, about 2 weeks before the deadline, I hated it. I absolutely hated it, and I looked at it and I was like, "What am I doing with this?" And that's because it was out of my comfort zone, and I was trying to introduce a craft that I felt I had no business trying to pass off as an expert piece. Yeah. And that was the point where I decided to just re-look at it and remind myself the objective of this project is not to create artisans out of us. It is to ask contemporary artists to reimagine tekat through our own practice. That was a constant reminder throughout the times that I wanted to quit and tell Shamin, how do I get out of my contract and and pull out. Next slide, please. So what was the breakthrough, the realization that made me think, okay, I can? Well, Tekat carries a long history of refinement, of status, of court tradition. So the challenge for me was, how do I honor that heritage, but reimagine it through the lens that speak to wider communities and everyday experiences. And that's where my work sits. I needed to think about, how do I make this make sense with what I want to talk about? It had to be more socially accessible. It had to be relatable within my own practice. I had a post-it. Now, hindsight, I should have used that picture. I had a post-it on my work table that said "Tekat, but make it feminist." Was but that was essentially it. How do I make it make sense? One of the things that helped ground me was clinging on to, focusing on the fact that a large part of the Tekat heritage is matrilineal. There I found some grounding in feminism, and that was helpful. But in the end, the breakthrough for me was realizing that I needed to deconstruct the cut from what I objected to about what the cut represented, the class, the bourgeoisie, the royalty, and so I picked the most humble material I could think of, which is the mengkuang mat. And I went back to what was true to me, which is the figurative art. Even though historically the cut doesn't include figures, certainly not a half-naked woman. And I knew that could be seen as contentious, but it felt true to what I was doing. Yeah, and it was intentional. The decisions I made were intentional to be able to get through the project. Next, please. And so, how did I incorporate the cut within my own practice? Can you just go to the next slide? Yeah. So this is a little bit of the kind of art that I do. I'm a feminist artist, and I needed to bring back some sense of narrative and stories of womanhood. I was also the writer for the project, so it was really helpful to be able to interview the artisans, the women, and really get a sense of what does this mean to women. You know, how was Tekat transformative for the women of the kampungs like Kuala Kangsar? Once upon a time, Tekat was relegated only to the use and learning of royalty. And it was a period in the early 1900s that commoners could learn, and it changed women's lives. So that was important for me to get that grounding. And so I had to introduce a woman, and as you can see, I use a lot of diverse bodies as well in my art. The next slide, please. And I'm also a multidiscipline artist. I use a lot of materials, and so this project felt comfortable to me because I was able to mix the media and find a way. Again, I'm overusing this word, but for it to make sense with my practice was really what I was trying to do. Next slide, please. What am I exploring next with the cut? So I'm conscious that I'm recorded, so I'm not going to overpromise, but we're very careful around here.
Only you, I think everyone
Yeah. No. We know better. Contracts and all. No, because I had prepared a lot of raw materials. I was like, oh, might as well just do another one. So I'm doing a rooted. This is called rooted, and so I'm doing a rooted too, a little bit more ambitious. So that. But I think what I'd be really interested to go deeper into, to delve deeper into, there's been a lot of materials in the research I was doing about the cut, approaching it very much as a craft. So you're really looking at even academic papers will speak about benang emas, teknik macam ni, bunga macam ni, motif macam ni. What I was more interested in was more the anthropological, the socio-economic issues around the cut. You're really looking at it as something that, how do you look at this agenda analysis of the origins of the art? I think that would probably be where I would go next, and I would not have done it without this project. To be honest, the cut would never have featured on my radar at all. It's not, as I said, I felt I was so alienated from what the cut meant to the community, and I needed it to feel true. But now I've begun to challenge my own misconceptions and ignorance about it, and I'm appreciative of it. My colleagues had said already that it was a privilege for us to learn how to tekat. There were some of us who got to learn from the Adi Guru. That's the highest award that can be bestowed upon a person who does tekat. And we were in her workshop. Such an honor, such a privilege. It's not like you can just walk off the street and say, "Hi, can I tekat?" You know, this was a real privilege, and every one of us have felt the weight of doing this, and the project has given us that opportunity. Um, the way we're crafting the cut now is not very different from 600 years ago, I'm sure. And so we do feel that weight of responsibility of carrying that heritage. I don't think we can be cavalier about that. That's something that we'll all take away, and it really changes our lives and the way we craft in the future. Thank you.
And are there any final questions? Yeah, because I think the artists will be around, so you can actually have more conversations with them. If not, I'll close the session. But yeah. Yes, go ahead. Yeah.
Like to this question. I'm say, terima kasih. Good share. Tapi soalan belum tadi, this is not specific to any artist. I'm interested after what Ms. Yanti explanation about the work. During the process of this project, was there any instances that made you change your worldview, philosophically, technically, artistically, conceptually, which you can share?
Anybody?
I'll start. I'd like to firstly introduce Intan. Intan, who's sitting in front here. She was the one. Right now, we call her our Bertekat consultant because she was the one that actually brought the project to temuhouse, and I wasn't involved in the initial proposal. And then when we got the sort of the grant, and then Temu or Nina came to me and said, "Would you want to do a Tekat project?" My first thought was like, Tekat's very old school. How are we going to bring it to the contemporary? I couldn't see it, to be honest. Even when I was reaching out to the artists, I was concerned because I didn't know whether the artists could do it. In fact, when they went for the workshop, I gave them a week to see whether they wanted to continue, right? Right? But I think I was shown otherwise because this whole project has been an eye opener on what artists of Malaysia can do as a community as well. I think you see here today, would you imagine tekat with food, tekat on batik, tekat conceptual, on mengkuang as a Borneo motif? We think no. And I would say that we actually on photography. So if anyone were to ask me how did this project go, I say yes, I think we checked on how do we bring traditional arts into the contemporary. So did it change my view? Yes. Maybe I didn't start out open-minded enough, but now I think I've got an open heart, and I think
She even tried
I even tried to cut, and that was just 2 weeks back. That didn't go very well.